thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. The pay increase for COLA is effective, and now it is official, showing on the VA's website. This is great news because now you can dive into the numbers and see where you fall. Now, the interesting part here, stick with me, is the effective date is December 1st, 2023. Take a look at your check. It's the same as it was the month before, so you did not realize any sort of increase. I'm going to dive into why that happens, what you need to look for, and I'm going to go through some of the new rates that are reflected with the COLA so we could actually realize the actual dollar figures that we're going to be receiving. Excuse me. So, with that, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. If you're not a member, consider joining. That does help support the channel, and it helps me to find you quicker in the comments. Another way that you can support the channel is really, frankly, just let the video run, because that tells YouTube to push it out to more people, increasing the reach. So, and it helps our subscribers, right, as a collective. I view this more as a team thing than just a me thing. So, anyway, jumping into it, first I'm going to talk about the effective date piece. So here on the VA's website, it states clearly compensation rates for veterans effective December 1st, 2023. It says it right there. So 2024 Veterans Disability Compensation Rates, review 2024 Veterans Disability Compensation Rates. Use our compensation benefits rates table to find your monthly payment amount. We base your monthly payment amount on your disability rating and details about your dependent family members. Now, dependent family members, remember, is your children, obviously, your spouse, and can also include parents. Now, as you scroll through this, it says here, compensation rates for veterans with a 10% to 20% disability rating effective December 1st, 2023. Now, the reason why this happens, and the reason why your December 1st pay for compensation from the VA is not reflecting any sort of increase, is because the VA pays you in the rear. They're paying in the rear sometimes, and they pay you in the rear. So, with that, what you're looking at is every month that you receive a check from the VA, it's paying you for the month prior. So, effectively, your December 1st pay from the VA is paying you for all of November, because they can't pay you for something you haven't been alive for yet, right? If they paid you the other way around, December 1st was your December payment, well, what happens if you passed away on December 10th, right? So that's why they always pay you in the rear. So that's that reason. And so what's this effective date is the effective date is now saying, hey, when your January payment comes, we're going to pay you all of December with the new rate for January. Now, there's another kind of twist to this, and this twist is the 1st is a holiday, and the next business day moving backwards is actually, if I remember right, the 29th of December on a Friday. So you should be seeing your January 1st VA payment at the end of December. I believe it's December 29th. I'm not looking at a calendar. So December 29th, Friday, whatever that Friday is, the last Friday of December, is when you should actually receive that January 1st payment that actually pays you for all of December, if that makes sense. So that's why our effective date is not in line with our actual pay date. So moving on, I'm going to jump through some of these ratings, the new numbers for some of the most common situations out there, but you can also Google search and go right into the VA's website as well. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to read a few as we go through in each category. So your 10% rating, remember 10% does not include any sort of dependents. You cannot include them at a 10 or 20% rating. So it's just a flat rating. 10% rating is now $171.23. Your 20% rating is at $338.49. As we move up, you get to the 30% rating, you're actually able to include dependent spouse, parents, children, and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through veteran alone and veteran with a spouse, but no parents and no children. So veteran alone at 30% is $524. I'm going to leave the change off. 40% is $755. 50% rating is now $1,075. 60% rating is now $1,361. Now, if you have, for those ratings through the 60%, 30 to 60%, that's the veteran alone. If you have a spouse, significant other, but no parents, no children, right, added on as dependents, with your spouse, your 30% is looking at $586. 40% is now looking at $838. 50% is $1,179. 60% is now $1,486. And again, I left the change off. So now that we know what those are, and again, I'm not including dependent parents in this conversation. So we'll move on to the higher ratings here at 70 to 100. Again, veteran alone. The veteran alone is at 70%, $1,716. At 80% is now $1,995. 90% is $2,241. And at 100%, veteran alone is $3,737. So it's about a $1,500 bump from moving from a 90% to 100%. So I'm going to take a second here to remind you that if you're a 90% veteran, your 90% true number could be 94% rounded down to 90, which means you're a sneeze away from 100. So just something to kind of keep in mind. You want to always understand what your raw rating is, because you might be closer to the next tier than you may have previously thought. Moving on, dependent status with a spouse. So veteran with a spouse, 70% is $1,861. 80% is $2,161. 90% is $2,428. And 100% is $3,946. So pretty substantial. Moving on to, I'm going to go to 30 to 60% with a spouse and children. So we'll do a spouse with one child. So a spouse with one child at 30% rating is $565. A veteran, that's a veteran only with one child. Sorry. Let's move to, I wanted to do veteran with a spouse. So let me find that here. With one spouse. All right. With child and spouse. So 30% with a spouse and a child, $632. 40% is $899. 50% is $1,255. 60% is $1,577. Now, also keep in mind that if you have a spouse and a child, or any dependent for that matter, and your numbers aren't lining up, you're less than that, you might be being paid at the veteran only rate, which means you need to file the claim to add dependents to your VA rating for compensation payments. All right, moving on to the last little tier here, we're going to do the 70% to 100% with a spouse and one child. So with the child and the spouse at 70%, you're looking at $1,968. With an 80% rating, you're looking at $2,283. 90% rating is $2,565. And we'll wrap it out with the 100% rating at $4,098. So pretty substantial at that 100%. And even once you get over the 70% mark, you're really looking at some substantial numbers. So with that, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Remember that we're paid in the rear from the VA Every month you receive your payment at the beginning of the month. It's supposed to be the first of the month. If you're with a credit union, you usually get it a day or two earlier. But the fact is that it's your first of the month payment for VA compensation or DIC or any of that stuff. It's paying for the prior full month. So therefore, as we roll into January's payment, it will pay you for all of December, which is the effective date for these new rates. So with that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.